Mire, la crisis energética es un problema que está afectando a todo el planeta y que necesita soluciones urgentes. Además, todo esto en un contexto en el cual crece la demanda y, por si esto no fuera poco, aumenta la alarma por el cambio climático. ¿Qué papel están jugando las fuentes de energía alternativas? ¿Y podrían reducir estas fuentes de energía alternativas nuestra dependencia de los combustibles fósiles? ¿Y serían sostenibles a nivel económico? Vamos a poner todos estos desafíos encima de la mesa y los vamos a tratar, ¿de acuerdo?, para buscar soluciones, estrategias, para entenderlos, por supuesto, porque nuestro propósito es avanzar hacia un futuro mucho más sostenible. Invitamos a Brian Davis, CEO de C2X, a Francisco Reynés, presidente ejecutivo de Naturgy, y acompañándoles a Alicia Carrasco, CEO de olivoENERGY. Gracias. Gracias.
Yo.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here. We are here to speak about energy and the future of energy. So last week, the European Union, the Energy Council, passed their agreement on the proposal for a new market reform. This reform, the electricity market reform, aims to make price less dependent on volatility and also on gas, also to protect consumers from price spike, and also to boost energy renewable energy. In fact, if we look at the figures of the International Energy Agency, they have proposed that if we want to go to net zero in 2050, we need to triple, make 3 times what we have now, the renewable energy, up to 11 gigawatts by 2030. So there are many drivers that make energy very complex. We are talking about electricity, electrified economy. We are talking about security of supply. We are talking about power to X. We are talking about hydrogen, biomethane. We are talking also about grids. If we don't make the grids more capable to contain the capacity we need for more demand and for more renewable and for more new energy vectors like hydrogen, biomethane, and so on, we won't be able to make it. Also, we know that consumers are leading decarbonization. And also, we are talking about demand-side flexibility. So at the end of the day, there is something very important, that is energy transition is the pillar of the EU industrialization. So taking into account that energy is the backbone of our economy and is heavily influenced by geopolitics, as we heard before, regulations, operation rules, and also innovation, I told you, it's not easy, the energy sector, and it's not easy to understand what are the best steps to go forward and to achieve the energy transition. But with this, we have 2 great speakers here with us. We have Francisco Reynés, that is CEO of Naturgy, and also we have Brian Davis, which is CEO of C2X, which is a company of the group APM Moller Maersk, and they're going to give us the view on what is the energy future for Europe and what we need to do. And with that, I'm sorry that my voice is kind of a bit funny. Sorry for that. I would like to ask you, Francisco, being Naturgy one of the 3 largest energy companies in Spain, how do you see the future of energy and what are the main drivers towards the net zero economy?
Bueno, buenos días a todos y discúlpenme mi Spanglish porque si no mi colega Brian Davis nos tenemos que comunicar en el mismo idioma, ¿no? Lo intentaré hacer claro y sencillo para que todo el mundo me entienda, ¿no? Thank you very much, David, to share with you that panel. I think that the energy industry in general today in the world is facing a very important and key trilemma. We like to call it trilemma because at the same time we need to solve 3 problems which are going to affect all the different stakeholders: companies, consumers, suppliers, and society in general. For me, the first question to solve the trilemma is to be sure that in any case, we are not putting on risk the security of supply. Security of supply is one of the most important problems that the energy industry is facing since it exists, it is one of the most important topics that needs to be solved. There is no one that wants to decide whether to switch on the light or at the same time to heat their house, and then security of supply cannot put on risk. The number two is about the trend of making energy generation more sustainable. There's no doubt that the world is facing a very important target, which is decarbonization. It's no doubt that CO2 is going to have clearly impact not only in our generation, but in the future generations. And then being more sustainable needs to be solved at the same time that avoiding putting on risk the supply of energy. But at the third time, and it's the three topics that needs to be solved in a once, is that energy should be available for all the inhabitants in the world at an affordable price level. Price affordability cannot be contrary to the security of supply. I just want to give you one data. One data which is very clear is that in the world, in the year 2010, there were 7,000 million inhabitants. Today, we have 7,800, but 7,000 million of them are having access to electricity. That means there are 7,000 million people that they want to get access to electricity, they want to have security of supply, and they want to decarbonize its generation. Electricity companies like us, and we don't need to forget that we are also in the size of the gas supply, we work in parallel to solve these three questions. And taking advantage that we have here la consejera de Economía de la Junta de Andalucía or la alcaldesa de Granada y otras personalidades, I think that from the business perspective, we will be super glad to hear and have the support by the administration to overcome all the different bottlenecks that this change is producing. We are changing the generation mix from coal, nuclear, gas, to others. Great. Hydro, wind, solar, but the infrastructure should be adapted to that change. Not only in Spain, in the rest of the world, infrastructures come first, because the worst and the big frustration may come when you have solutions for energy production, but they cannot be reached to the energy consumers. I think that this is the aim not only of Naturgy, of the general industry. I think that we have here an example with my colleague Brian Davis that is working with great projects here in Andalucía. And the example of the attractiveness of Spain, and in particular of Andalucía, for this kind of investments, it's a demonstration that Spain as a country has a lot to say in this energy transition. Then thank you very much for the question, and happy to be again here in sede, y espero que me hayan entendido.
Sí.
I think, Brian, after we have heard about security of supply, sustainability and affordability, also that we need the support of the administration and that infrastructure is important, how from a consumer that have more than 700 ships, can you tell us more about what is, about the origin of CO2, C2X, sorry, and also the link on how you want to secure for your whole company the green energy that you need?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for having me here, and I apologize that I don't speak Spanish well enough to present to you in Spanish. So thank you very much to my colleagues for doing this in English. I'm the CEO of C2X, which is a company that was created by A.P. Moller Holdings and Maersk. And Maersk is the biggest, one of the biggest shipping companies in the world. And they've been a leader in driving the decarbonization of long-distance shipping. And if we think about the need to get the world to net zero, you have to electrify as much as you can of the industry and make that electricity renewable and clean electricity. And that is, what you're working on and needs a lot of commitment to the infrastructure to make it possible. But there are certain sectors that are very hard to abate and they can't be electrified. And long-distance shipping is a good example. If you're taking a container vessel from China to Europe or to the rest of the world, you need a fuel on board that has enough energy, and you can't electrify ships and you can't electrify planes. They need a fuel, and that fuel has to be fossil-free. And that's why our company was created, to bring and develop fossil-free fuels that look and feel just like the fuel you use today, but they're made from non-fossil carbon origin. And that's what we're here in our company. One of our leading projects is in Huelva, in Andalusia, and we're looking to build one of Europe's biggest factories to produce green methanol, which is a synthetic fuel from taking green hydrogen together with biogenic CO2 or carbon, good carbon together with green hydrogen makes this green methanol. And that methanol we can then sell and use in the ships of the Maersk group. It can also be used by chemical companies to substitute the existing methanol that's made from fossil sources and therefore is, contributing to, climate change. So that's what we're doing. And we came to Spain, to the Iberian Peninsula and Andalusia in particular, because we believe in the potential of this area to have abundant, affordable, low-cost renewables, because we need green hydrogen, and green hydrogen needs a supply of reliable supply of affordable renewable electricity to make the green hydrogen. And we also need to combine that with CO2. So that's what we're about. And the reason that Maersk created our business is because they've been leading the industry and they're already ordering. There are already ships that run on this fuel today. And the demand is growing, but the supply is not keeping up. And the reason the supply is not keeping up with the demand are really two things. One are some of the challenges of infrastructure that we've talked about already. We need the infrastructure in place because I need gigawatts of power, not megawatts. So it's a very significant amount of power you need to produce the fuel at the scale that's required. And the other one is today the projects are very expensive. It's very expensive to produce. So we need the support of governments to help us lower the production costs and also create the incentive for customers to move to the low carbon alternative to fossil fuels.
Okay, thank you very much. Bueno, la verdad que estamos teniendo una jornada tremendamente interesante. Nos han dado varias guías de cuáles son los pasos a seguir. Voy a continuar en inglés por Brian. Entonces, una pregunta para los dos. What's the prospect for potential? What's the prospect you see for biomethane here in Spain?
Yeah.
How do you see it?
Yes, I think biomethane is a really great source of biogenic carbon. And biomethane is made by taking waste streams from agricultural waste or even forestry wastes, and you can process them, and through the processing create methane, the molecule methane, that is the same as natural gas or fossil methane, but it's renewable and it's using waste. So it's a really valuable contribution to local economies by upgrading a waste into something valuable, but also helping us to decarbonize the economy. So I think there's a tremendous potential here. And as I was hearing, and maybe you can expand, I think we're being held back a little bit by it's not coming on as fast as possible. But we look at it as a great source of feedstock for our facilities, and we'd like to see it go faster.
Thank you, David. I fully agree with you. I think that there are three ideas I needs to be shared with the audience. Number one is, doesn't matter what's the source of the gas. The important thing is that gas can only be transported either by tube or by ship. There is no other way because there are no enough economies of scale to afford that level of cost of transportation compared to the level of cost of energy. No? Then if we want to afford the transportation of gas, it makes that the gas that you can produce next to where it is consumed, that's the best solution. And biomethane, what it makes is that it addresses next to the consumption, the production of that gas. Any country has to afford a new directive from the European Union that in 2025 is going to force the solution for natural wastes that needs to be transformed into any solution to avoid CO2 emissions. Then the next closest and technology solved idea that we have in front of is biomethane. No? Biomethane plants can solve the problem of a very important amount of natural garbages into producing energy that in any case is going to emit CO2. Then we are in front of a new great idea that will help to decarbonize the economy and solve a clear problem for the energy industry. Again, we are in front of a very great opportunity that needs to have the support of all the different stakeholders. In this case, we need permitting. We need the understanding of the area where the biomethane plants are going to be located. And 3, we need to start being determined in going forward in our investments that are going to come first, that our returns. This is an example how energy companies are committed for this decarbonization objective. And I think that it's important for the society to understand that we are not only energy companies, we are problem solvers of a problem of the entire humanity, not only about our industries.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question, which I'm going to take something that was spoken before. And it's about today that we have the crisis of Ukraine and Russia, and also the conflict between Israel and Palestine. What do you think is the role of energy, and how can we look at it from the energy point of view?
Well, probably all of you have already read the consequences of the war into the energy prices since February 2022, when the Ukraine war started. The reality is that the markets of energy has discounted that potential effects of the war even before. In October 2021, all the forwards of the TTF of gas, Brent oil, and pool electricity prices were starting to ramp. That's a reality, and you can go back to the internet, Kale, and you will see how the ramps of prices started to ramp even before the war. Why was the reason behind that? The reason is that the energy and the geopolitics have always been connected. There is part of a speculation around the energy, and there is also part of economical effects because it's need. Since Aristotle defined the energy as the need of moving from potentially to reality, and this is part of the movement, energy is something that everyone needs for everything. Then it forms part of the market scenario, all the energy prices and energy commodities performing in a different way. We have seen super peaks of the economy prices after the invasion of Ukraine, and when the world saw that they were sources of alternative energy to the Russian gas, then prices started to decline. But the reality is that after the big conflict in Middle East, prices are again revamping just because the potential effects that the world may have in the short and mid-term future. The reality is that energy companies have demonstrated two things. Number one is that despite of this situation, we are prepared to afford with solutions in our shoulders, and we are supporting solutions for our clients. And number two, that no one has been able to put on risk the security of supply. There were a lot of speculations about the security of supply, but the balance sheets of all the energetic companies have been able to support that risk under their shoulders. I think that this is something that we need to consider when I understand there is some criticism about the energy companies in the play of the economy as a whole. But there are a second part which is never well understood, is the role that we have within the society to support the evolution and the well-being of the society as a general comment.
Yeah, I think the events are tragic, and you can't go away from just the human tragedy that's around all of these events. But if you do look at what does it mean, I think it's a great reminder the way the prices go so high when you get these shocks in the system, that it's really incumbent, I think, on governments to think carefully about the energy policy to set up the conditions for security of supply. And I think particularly now with renewable energy, it's a real opportunity, because the wind and the sun are your resource. They're here for free in your country. If you can set the right frameworks to fully develop your own natural resources and get the energy from the sun and the wind around you, then you become far more resilient and less dependent upon whatever the price for gas is. And of course that will take some time, but I think it's another reinforcement similar to the need to get to net zero to solve climate change, where we really need industrial players like us to work together with the policy makers and the governments to how do we go much faster on developing all of the renewable resources in every country, because that will give you much more security of supply and affordable and predictable prices for your energy. And the other thing is it opens up energy from other parts of the world that don't have fossil energy today. Because you look at the map, you can see where the sun is shining, and there's tremendous energy available around the world, but the sun is shining in the wrong place compared to where the demand is. So we need to find a way to transport the energy from those very sort of sunny places of the world that are maybe far more stable and reliable, like my home country, Australia. But so these sorts of places, how do you take the sun in Australia and economically get it to help Europe have a clean, affordable source of energy, or China, or Japan, or Korea, or other places? And I think that's what companies like ours, companies like yours are trying to do through converting renewable energy into molecules that can be used to decarbonize the economy. So I do think that it's a very helpful reminder of the need to drive faster with the support of the government and the industry working together to make it a reality.
Okay, so thank you. I think we have a closure. We have solution providers. We are companies like Naturgy, like C2X, that are fighting, thinking, and have the solutions to go to the future of energy. We need it. But also, we have to go faster, and we have to have the support from the government and the public authorities to allow infrastructure and to accelerate the permits. So with that, I would like to give them an applause. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Brian.
Gracias.